All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great end to your week. As promised, today we're going to be doing a film session on Game 1 of the NBA Finals, bringing down a bunch of things from the perspective of both teams, a bunch of things they did well, a bunch of things they need to improve on, some adjustments I expect to see as we head into Game 2. Just a lot of like big picture film analysis over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. Before we get started, though, I do want to dive into some of the big picture topics surrounding this game. I want to talk about a couple of the things that we expected from our series preview. So we'll go a little monologue off the top, and then we'll get into some film. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel. We have a goal to get to 150,000 subs in this playoff run. If you guys would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button, it helps us a lot. If you're already subscribed, like this video, sign up for post notifications. All right, let's talk some basketball. So first and foremost, after watching the film, it was really fascinating to me how many similarities there were between this game and the game back on March 1st, in the sense that, like, you know, all the discussion about OG Anunoby guarding Wemby, we basically didn't see that. It ended up being Karl-Anthony Towns. And I actually thought that was the right way to go. There was obviously some risk there with Cat potentially getting into some foul trouble, but he held up really well all game long. I thought, honestly, Cat was the story of the entire game for me on my film rewatch. Obviously, Brunson was brilliant in the fourth quarter, has that little scoring run to get them that 8-point lead, makes 3 straight amazing plays down the stretch between the tap out offensive rebound to Mikal Bridges for the catch and shoot 3 in the right corner, the double team where he hits Mikal Bridges in the gap, who draws the foul, and then the pull-up jump shot over Devin Vassell. So obviously, Brunson makes the 3 biggest plays of the game. I'm not trying to undercut that at all. But in the film, the biggest dynamic of the entire like physical matchup between the two teams is the problem that Karl-Anthony Towns causes for this particular Spurs team. On the one end of the floor, his low center of gravity, his combination of speed and strength to be able to guard Wemby one-on-one in his ISOs. And then on the other end of the floor, the dynamic where if you deploy Wemby on Cat and he's guarding him 25 feet from the basket, it opens up everything at the rim. Not to mention Wemby struggles to guard Cat straight up. I want to talk more about that in just a second. And then as soon as you move Wemby off of Cat, he just has this massive physical advantage against every single other Spurs rotation player that you will see time and time again as we start to dig through the film. Obviously, there are a lot of things that both teams can do better. We talked a lot about the Spurs running those wide pin screens for Wemby with like Brunson's man. They basically didn't do that last night. So there's still a lot that the Spurs can certainly do better. I thought the Knicks, obviously, as you'll see when we dig into the film, missed a lot of shots they normally make early in the game. They're certainly capable of playing better, but the fundamental physical matchup kind of centers around Karl-Anthony Towns. You guys will see that heavily in the film. The one last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the tape, Victor Wembanyama's individual defensive technique. And this is what's scary, is like his offensive technique needs a lot of work too, in terms of like his processing, in terms of some specific elements of his skill set, especially when it comes to like the reliability of his jump shot. So some of the things with like his handle and him dribbling into traffic where he can have turnover issues. Wemby's got stuff he's got to work out there, but the same thing goes to the defensive end. The difference is his natural gifts are so insane that on the defensive end, he's already the best player in the world and one of the best defenders of all time, despite the fact that he has some issues there. And one of the major issues he has is he really, really struggles to guard players one-on-one that can actually like truly threaten him from the 3-point line, where all season long, one of the reasons why he was actually not a very efficient ISO defender was he would overplay the 3 and he would give up drives. And Cat last night was no exception to that, where you see Wemby just overly aggressive way up in Cat's grill to the point where all he had to do was basically make these low rip-through moves to get right around him. The advantage of having the length that Wemby has is the ability to offer a contest. So with Wemby, the next step for him in his one-on-one defense is the ability to identify what the gap is, where it's like, this is as far as I can be off the player, to where I can just step up and throw my hand up and get a great contest if he ever goes up into a shot. But at the same time, I'm giving as much ground as possible so that I'm in position to beat him to spots if he looks to drive. That kind of push and pull is not something that he's very good at right now. And that will grow in time. And I just think even over the course of this series, and we'll dig more into this in the film, but I would continue to deploy Wemby on Cat, but I'd have the coaching staff get in his ear and be like, hey, when he's holding the ball in triple threat, situate yourself, either right at the 3-point line or a little bit behind the 3-point line, where you feel like if you just step forward and throw a contest, Cat has two options: to shoot like a heavily contested three or to shoot a super deep three, two things that will cause his percentages to go down. From there, you're in a better position to like offer help on cuts or to cut Cat off should he look to drive. So I think there's a lot of like technique stuff with Wemby defensively that needs to be rectified, not just in this series, but especially in his career development trajectory over the next couple of seasons. All right, let's dig into the film. All right, in this first clip here, this was something we talked about before the series. Just the simple willingness that Jalen Brunson has to work off ball and to shoot threes. So he sets a screen here for Karl-Anthony Towns to run to the wing. Then he sets a back screen for Devin Vassell. Watch the way that the back screen causes confusion for the Spurs. Stephon Castle's thinking, hey, I'm going to take OG Anunoby, you switch, but they botch it, right? So now you have both guys on OG Anunoby, so you cause the confusion that has Brunson break open. Champagnie does make a nice play and end up closing out. But here's the difference between Shea and Brunson, right? Brunson just catches and shoots this thing, and he knocks it down. What Shea would have done in that exact situation in the last round, even if he was willing to work off ball, which he straight up wasn't, he would have caught here and he would have ate up this space and dribbled into this gap, which would have given Champagnie a chance to recover, and you would have had a situation where he was taking a heavily contested mid-range jump shot. That's immediately from the first possession, you just see the difference in the variety between Brunson and Shea, where it's like Brunson setting multiple off-ball screens and then taking a catch-and-shoot three coming out of that action and paying it off, versus the Shea stuff so much on ball, so much eating space towards the mid-range. Here's an example of how vulnerable Victor Wembanyama can be to dig downs. Watch him as he's trying to dribble against Cat, and watch OG Anunoby on the dig. See? And Mikal Bridges gets in there too. But essentially, Wemby dribbles at Cat, gets cut off, and then goes to make his counter move. And this has been the peak of the Knicks defense over the course of the last several years. Just Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby digging down, but also recovering. And you will see examples in the film later on in the show where they just do a really good job of getting back out to the perimeter when they don't force a turnover there. Here's an example of why Jalen Brunson was inefficient last night. So he gets switched on to De'Aaron Fox. We have this little action that Mikal Bridges is running. He kicks it out to Josh Hart, who drives. It gets swung back. As we're in rotation, the result in rotation is you get another good defender on you. Then we set a ball screen with Josh Hart, which results in another good defender on you in Julian Champagnie. There's just, everyone's a good defender, and that just makes the proposition a lot harder for Brunson. Now, next here, you're going to see that back pressure is going to be what you see kind of show up later on in the game. Brunson does get like enough separation there, but Champagnie's tall enough to be able to contest him from behind and block the shot. You're going to see an example later where Brunson turns it over specifically because of that dynamic. One of the big things that continues to stand out to me throughout this playoff run, the Spurs are at their best when they just get into their pick and roll action. They trust the skip pass, and guys knock down threes. Here's that 45 action. Stephon Castle ends up drawing the low man help on Victor Wembanyama on his rolls. That's Victor Wembanyama's roll gravity. Rifles the skip pass. De'Aaron Fox just has to knock that down, which he very much did not last night. Here's that dynamic I was talking about defensively with Victor Wembanyama on Cat and how problematic it is for him to be pressuring the ball as much as he is. So Cat trailing the play, like look at Wemby just like way up on him. And there's just literally no reason for this. And watch how easy Cat can just rip through. Boom. Look at how low he gets. Look at Cat's head. Low to the ground, rip through. Wemby has no chance. Like, I mean, look at how much separation he gets on that drive. Here's one of those rotations that I talked about last night where they rotate to the corner and you have to trust that pass to the wing. So you're running a ball screen with Castle and Wemby here. He puts Josh Hart in jail, starts to work his way through the lane. We have our low man help in the form of OG Anunoby. Mikal Bridges is the guy who's kind of splitting the difference between the two. But as the pass gets made from Stephon Castle, look at how Mikal Bridges ends up rotating. He opens up his stance and ends up rotating to the corner and ends up poking this ball away for a steal. That open read, and there were several examples of this throughout the game, is actually up the wing here. This is the guy that's typically open. A lot of missed reads from the Spurs last night. You'll see several more of them as we work through the film today. Here's the identical issue that Victor Wembanyama had with Cat, with the high center of gravity issue. So watch as Cat is trailing. Look at the hard closeout, and he goes right around him. And again, all I think Wemby needs to do here is Cat going to make Cat take and make like 27 footers? Like, take this step a little bit further back. If he does shoot, offer the contest, but keep your body down in a defensive stance and be prepared for the drive. He's just way too overplaying here. Like, look at where his left foot is. He's 25 feet from the basket with his weight shifted forward on a shooter that's 28 feet from the basket. Like, make this same exact sort of situation physically more tenable for you by sliding your positioning back to this spot, where if Cat wants to shoot, you offer a late contest and tip the cap if he makes it, but it gives you an opportunity to cut off his driving lanes instead of just giving up the angle that easily. Here, Victor Wembanyama is going to post up on the left block, I think against Josh Hart, if I remember. Yeah, so the flare screen forces the switch onto Josh Hart. They swing it over to Vassell, make the post entry. Cat does a good job backing down, draws the secondary defender from Mikal Bridges, makes the right kick out pass to Steph Castle. Here's the problem. Steph Castle is now 7 for 27 on catch and shoot threes over the course of the last 2 rounds. Just has to knock that down. Here's an example of how much more physically comfortable Steph Castle looks driving to the rim as soon as Landry Shamet entered the game. Look at how easily he just powers through him. It's the Knicks bench where the Spurs guards are going to have their opportunities to be aggressive. This is an example of a really good double team on a Cat post up. One of the things I liked about it, look how much more aggressive they are pressuring the basketball to force the turnover. So we swing the ball around. Cat's posting Keldon Johnson. Watch the double team and watch Wemby's hands. Wemby gets over there. They're aggressive. See how they are closing that gap? So even though they have 2 on the ball and there's literally a wide open cutter, they're able to get a deflection and force the turnover. That really is the key between like a well-executed double team and a poorly executed double team. How good's your ball pressure? This is with the Cornet group. On this play, Cornet's going to get put onto OG Anunoby in rotation. So we have this little Cat as the this is kind of classic Spurs basketball. They want to protect Cornet in ball screen. So they switch Castle up so that he can switch the ball screen. Now Cornet's on OG. So how do they counter? They just pass to OG in the corner. Cornet throws a good closeout. OG Anunoby drives, ends up kicking it out. Cornet's still on OG. Now watch what happens. Because Cornet is not matched up with Cat, he's matched up with OG. Cat is able to just bury Steph Castle underneath the basket and get the offensive rebound. I think he ends up missing this one. But the point is, you'll see on several examples, Cat just has too much of an advantage when he's not matched up with a center underneath the basket. Here's that back pressure sequence. So look, this is where Champagnie blocked Jalen Brunson last time. This is usually a shot that he's going to get up, but because he's a little bit spooked by the back pressure from Champagnie, he ends up throwing that swing pass. Dylan Harper jumps the passing lane, ends up getting the run out. Really nice drop coverage rep from Cornet. Watch Dylan Harper. Sees Landry Shamet, sees food. Powers right through his chest. Big thing that stood out to me on the film early, the Knicks just looked a little bit out of rhythm, a little rusty, missed a lot of good looks. Here's another example of that. OG Anunoby ends up running a ball screen action here on the left wing with Mitchell Robinson. Here comes the ball screen. Gets good dribble penetration. Draws 3 defenders. Wide open look for Brunson. So like Brunson misses that. Hart missed some good looks early. Mikal Bridges missed like a wide open kind of bunny elbow jump shot. A lot of easy misses for the Knicks early in this one. Here's another example of the Spurs offense at their best, just simply getting into their ball screen game and throwing that skip pass. Off the flare, rifle skip pass. Dylan Harper knocks it down. They just have to be really careful with that low man rotation. One of the things, the OG Anunoby's in a little bit of a pick your poison kind of situation here, and he ends up not dropping. But there were plays where this guy was dropping, and then the read ends up being this guy. But that's a really difficult pass across your body. So like I'd be careful to drift too far past like where that logo is. So you make sure you have 2 kick out opportunities, 2 kick out kind of release valves. I thought this was just a beautiful Spurs driving kick possession. It starts with Dylan Harper getting 2 feet into paint, attacking Landry Shamet in transition. So he attacks, gets 2 feet in the paint, draws 2 defenders, kicks to Wemby, swing. Harrison Barnes drives the closeout against Mitchell Robinson. We have the relocation from De'Aaron Fox, who drives, another relocation from Champagnie, knocks down the 3 in the corner. That is beautiful drive and kick offense. Here's Dylan Harper overpowering Jalen Brunson. I really want to see the Spurs start to play more of their guards together to try to create more dynamics where Brunson's guarding the ball. Not even bad defense from Brunson. He's just physically overwhelmed, like most skill guards would be against a guy like Dylan Harper. Here's a beautiful Knicks possession. So we have an Alvarado Brunson, an Alvarado Cat pick and roll, which forces a switch. So now Wemby's on Alvarado. Cat uses the ball fake to beat Fox off the dribble. Wemby has to help as a result. Harrison Barnes rotates to Alvarado. Extra pass to Deuce McBride, wide open 3. Really good offense. Here's yet another example of Wemby overplaying Cat just too far. Look at his body positioning. Look at how far away from the rim he is. And like, what is this? Now you're opening your stance and your right foot is literally, 26 feet away from the rim. Cat just easily turns the corner on him. That's bad defense. Today's show is brought to you by presenting sponsor Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. The NBA Finals are here. The lights are brighter, the pressure is higher, and every possession can define a legacy. Will New York finally end a 53-year drought and bring a title to the Big Apple? Or will San Antonio's young superstar tip off the next great dynasty run? However you see it playing out, head over to Hard Rock Bet and turn your picks into a payday. Because once the final buzzer sounds, that's it for hoops until next season. So shoot your shot while you can. And same game parlays are the best way to get in on the action. Big teams, superstars, clutch performances. There's so many storylines to bet on. So why not stack them all into a same game parlay for a bigger payout? If you're ever late to tip off, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet lets you live bet all game long, from the first bucket to the final buzzer. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today, and you could score $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but an extra $150 in bonus bets. And sure, Hard Rock Bet is Florida's only legal sports book, but you don't have to be in Florida to join the party. Hard Rock Bet is also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan, with more states on the way. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. When Victor Wembanyama gets switched out onto the perimeter like he does here in this transition cross match against OG Anunoby, I don't understand the point in him not switching onto the ball handler. He just stays home on OG Anunoby, which allows Jose to easily turn the corner. Cat just seals Vassell super easily, and Jose Alvarado gets a layup. Like, the closest way, the easiest way to get Wemby back to the basket is for him to just switch this ball screen. Now he's on Alvarado, and as Alvarado drives, he can continue to protect the basket. And if he ends up running into this mess, he still has an opportunity to try to make a play on the ball. Just gluing him on a spot-up shooter doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Here's Shamet finally wins a battle against Steph Castle after he's been getting pushed around a little bit by some of the Spurs power guards. One of the things I want you to watch, good job from Shamet, wins the battle, forces the turnover, but watch the dig down from Jose Alvarado. Because Jose right here digs down, watch what Steph has to do. Dig. Now Steph has to pick up his dribble. So Steph has picked up his dribble right here, 20 feet from the basket. So now he's going into this awkward kind of gather step, and now he's stuck where he has to make a shoot pass decision with no live dribble at the semicircle. That forces him to throw this bad kick out pass to Harrison Barnes. So that dig down from Jose Alvarado ends up making a big difference. Great defense from Cat on Victor Wembanyama here. Love the contact allowed both ways. So we'll play it full speed first, and then I'll show you in slow motion what I'm talking about. So kind of goes to the step through move off the pump fake. Seems like a pretty decent look, but now I want you to watch the 2 bits of contact. And this is the example of that battle that I love when officials allow. So on the step through, Wemby clearly chicken wings him. Watch the left elbow. Boom, chicken wing, right? Chicken wings Cat. So then when he goes to step through, watch Cat bump Wemby on the hip. He like shoves him on the hip, which throws him off balance enough to get him to miss the shot. That's the thing. Let Wemby use the chicken wing. Let Cat hit him back. That's how you keep flow in a basketball game. I thought all of that was within the realm of what I would consider to be normal defense. This is an interesting dynamic. We have Devin Vassell being guarded by Jalen Brunson. Why? Because Jordan Clarkson's on the floor. Jordan Clarkson, we talked about it in our series preview. I was wondering if Mike Brown would give him some burn because he had some moments versus the Spurs in the regular season. He did get his opportunities last night. I didn't think he was very good, but he was out there. As a result, And this goes to show you how much they view Brunson as a defender compared to Clarkson. Brunson, they actually put him on an offensive threat, Devin Vassell. They immediately end up putting Brunson in action. Smart, right? Gets downhill, draws a double team. Throw the basketball to Dylan. You did your job. Every team that has a guy that's a target is usually pretty good at protecting him. And one of the ways that they will protect him is sending help on drives and double teams and things along those lines. You did your job. You drew Brunson as the primary matchup because of the depth of offensive talent you have on the floor. You put him in action. You drew a second defender. Mission accomplished. Throw that pass. Here's some really good individual defense from Landry Shamet on De'Aaron Fox. I think that Landry Shamet is a really good matchup for these speed guards. Watch how he beats him to the spot over and over again. Forces him to give it up, contains, and forces him to do a tough shot. Did that to Donovan Mitchell a bunch of times. I was a little frustrated with this specific dynamic here where you end up with Dylan Harper on Jalen Brunson. And obviously Shamet's in the gap. But like, I just want to see Dylan Harper try to make Brunson pay with more of an aggressive drive towards that left-hand side. Maybe you get a wide open three for Devin Vassell. Just passing it back to Fox to take a bad pull-up three over Shamet, to me, is just not good offense. Now you're going to start to see the Knicks get a little bit of rhythm on offense. Here we see Jalen Brunson hit a nasty spin move on Carter Bryant in the lane. Watch as he just kind of uses his pressure against him, leans on him, spins, step through. Easy little right-handed scoop shot. Here, Brunson turns the corner just with like a rip-through move. This is an understanding of angles and leverage. He knows that he has Carter Bryant beat on the ground because his center of gravity is so low. He just needs to play through that contact. Look how he just powers through Carter Bryant with the low center of gravity. Hits the little floater. Here, Mikal Bridges ends up making a little mid-range jump shot. You can literally like feel the Knicks starting to kind of settle into the NBA Finals. We talked about that last night in just the uptick in athleticism and defensive talent and how it could lead to a little bit of an adjustment period. Look at this ridiculous Landry Shamet step back three. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here. Keldon Johnson, but look at the step back. That's a disgusting shot from Landry Shamet. So you can really feel the Spurs starting to figure it out, and their offense ended up being way more reliable the rest of the way. Here's another one of those double drag skips. So we get a double drag, Wemby slips, skip to Champagnie for three. Would love to see the Spurs continue to wear that out. Here's another offensive rebound for Cat. So you have Brunson drawing Wemby in a switch as a result of this action with Stephon Castle. He's guarding Brunson. This creates a dynamic where Wemby gets a good contest and forces Brunson into a tough shot. But this is like Castle's battling. He's doing everything he can. But what do you do with this guy? He's too big. Here's yet another good skip from De'Aaron Fox, this time out of a guard-guard screen with Devin Vassell. Guard, hedge, splits the hedge. Because he splits the hedge, he draws Cat over. Beautiful rifle skip pass to Julian Champagnie. Fox deserves more credit for some of the skip passes he threw last night after an otherwise brutal game. But I do want to see them get more into that. Here's another turnover for Wemby trying to dribble through traffic. I'd love to see him go to more of like a high gather here. So like, I don't understand when you're trying to split two really short players relative to him, why you'd want to have the ball low. Like if his goal is like, hey, I think I'm going to go right between these two dudes and I'm either going to be able to shoot a floater or I'm going to have some sort of easy kick out read, pound dribble, gather up high. Exposing the basketball down low is how you're going to end up losing it a lot against this type of defense. Let me know if you guys can pick up on what I got really excited about when I saw this play. So we have a ball screen with Victor Wembanyama and Stephon Castle. Swing back to Champagnie, swing to Fox. Post position for Wemby. Draws a foul. This is something I've been begging for all postseason. Run a ball screen, not to get a shot, but to get Wemby post position. Sets the screen. He rolls hard. Because he rolls hard, he's able to get behind Cat. But instead of just someone jacking up a shot within the next 2 seconds, we slow down. Now Wemby has post position. When he catches the basketball, his right foot is in the paint. And he's able to just turn over his right shoulder and draw a foul. Like, that's how easy it can be when you just show a little bit of patience in your ball screen attack. Look at this defense from Wemby. He guards like 4 different dudes on the same possession. He starts the possession on Cat ends up switching onto OG. Then, as Brunson ends up dribbling off the action and getting into the lane, he switches onto Hart. Then he switches back onto Cat. Then he switches onto OG on the drive and gets a contest. Like, just that's the one-man zone that we saw a lot more in the early third quarter, where Wemby just guards whoever is closest to the basket or furthest away from the action and then just trolls the paint. And that ended up causing some real problems for the Knicks as the Spurs went up 14 actually in the third quarter. Here's a Cat easy inside seal on Vassell. So as you can see here on this particular possession, Vassell is guarding Cat. Wemby ends up flashing high on Josh Hart. I don't think Wemby needs to be showing out that high. As soon as he goes out that high, and you're going to see another example where he contests a three here. Like, if you're going to guard Josh Hart, don't guard Josh Hart. Like, that's so that you can be down here. It doesn't make sense for you to guard Josh Hart and then take him as a threat seriously from the further away from the basket, because it just opens up this void underneath the basket. Really good seal from Cat. A little bit of a push on the back, but that I'm totally fine with. Easy layup. This is another example of trying to put Brunson in action, this time with this little dribble handoff from Cornette, and just Champagnie just takes a bad shot. I want to see that dynamic, but with all of the guards on the floor. So instead of Champagnie, just imagine, in this case, Fox. And so he's probably not being guarded by Fox. He's probably being guarded by Vassell in this case. Or he's guarding Vassell. But I want to see situations like that where you're forcing Brunson to guard in action as the primary defender on a possession instead of like in a situation where they can protect him. Really nice pass from Cat here on the cut to Shamet. So watch Shamet as he drives the closeout, works through the lane, dumps it off to Cat, and then just literally slips and gets an easy layup over the top. Nice pass from Cat. I thought this was a bad settle. Like, hey, you got 16 seconds on the shot clock. And because of a transition cross match, you drew Jalen Brunson as your primary defender. Jalen Brunson is your primary, 17 seconds. Take a deep breath, drive on him. Here's Karl-Anthony Towns again, just brilliant little and one drive against Luke Cornette. Cat was the Knicks' best player last night. Towns block here as he continues to spearhead this run as soon as Wemby steps off the floor. So we're targeting Brunson in a classic hedge and recover, right? Champagnie sets the screen. Brunson hedges. He gets back out. Champagnie still beats it, though, with a little jab step to the left and drive right. Harper's wide open because Deuce McBride fell over, but another missed read. Beautiful defensive play from Cat, though. Now Wemby checks back into the game, and Cat wins yet another battle, this time on the offensive glass against Wemby. Watch Cat just bully Wemby on this one. Wemby's got to throw a better box out. Cat just easily overpowers him on that one. Here's that possession where Wemby ends up contesting Josh Hart up top for no reason. So again, let Josh Hart take and make the shot. Cat's battling down there with Keldon. Josh flashes to the top of the key, 4 seconds on the shot clock. Just stay, dude, and get the rebound. Nope. We're selling out on Josh Hart. Now look over here. That's got to be Wemby's rebound. Here's an example of just how difficult this matchup is. Now Wemby's back on Cat. But he lingers just a second. See how he lingers? He's nervous to help. That leaves Shamet open on that back screen for the layup. Cat is really the guy that breaks the Spurs defense. Here, OG Anunoby overpowers Stephon Castle, just showing you the difference in the perimeter size dynamic. Watch how he turns the corner on the ball screen. Steph does a good job getting over, but OG just powers through him. Easy layup. This, I thought, was one of those bad Victor Wembanyama shots. There's a couple of them that I didn't include in the film today, but Wemby just has a few of these jump shots that just have no place in his game at this phase of his basketball development. So 12 seconds left, and you're just going to take a whirling dervish turnaround fadeaway. Like, let's get an easier shot. On this OG Anunoby corner three, I really don't know what De'Aaron Fox was doing. Kind of in no man's land. So we have a drive from Deuce McBride along the baseline. What's Fox doing? Like, you're not helping on the drive. You're not helping box out or tag Towns. You're just standing in the lane doing nothing. And now Deuce McBride throws that kick out to OG, and you're late on the closeout, and he hits a three. Here's that nasty OG Anunoby pull-up three over Wemby out of the right corner. Just keeps jabbing until he gets Wemby to lean a little bit. Big-time shot. Here's one of those help and recover situations from OG Anunoby that makes him such a gifted defender. I was literally thinking about this as I was watching the film. Like, you really do want to spend OG Anunoby at some point as a Castle stopper if Castle really gets going. but he's just so useful off ball too that there's really no place on the floor where he's not going to be profoundly impactful. So Fox has this semi-transition drive, ends up beating Deuce McBride with the left to right crossover. OG forces him to pick up his dribble and throw the kick out pass. Now watch this closeout. Forces the miss. This is like Draymond Green-esque. Look at where he is at the pass. Look at where he is at the contest. Unbelievable stuff from OG Anunoby. Juxtapose that with De'Aaron Fox and what his help and recover sequence just looked like on the last possession. Castle ends up smoking yet another catch and shoot three there. Now we're going to see Brunson beating some Castle pressure. I wonder if the Spurs should adjust their pickup point a little bit with Brunson as he continues to win these battles on the ground. He just turns the corner against the pressure and gets the layup. You can't turn the ball over on Wemby's rolls. If you turn the ball over on Wemby's rolls, you're just going to give up transition opportunities. Here's that example. So Castle ends up throwing, or Harper ends up throwing this pass to Vassell in the deep corner. He ends up rifling this kind of like up for grabs pass to Wemby that Josh Hart pokes away, sparks the transition opportunity. You guys will see Brunson score here in just a minute. I want to go back to one piece here. Harper, if you slow down, Wemby is your release valve. If you slow down. But he's going so fast downhill and he throws a jump pass. He leaves his feet to make the pass. That's where just a little bit more of like okay, I've made this move. I have Mikal beat. Slow down, get into his body, methodically work down the lane until Mitch commits, and you either have the kick back to Champagnie or you have the drop off to Wemby. Instead, Shamit's there the whole time. He's on top of it. That forces the pass way into the deep corner, which then leads to the turnover. And then here you guys see Brunson pay it off on the other end of the floor. Nasty in and out dribble. Boom. That just buckles Champagnie for the up and under. Here's that pick and roll snake that I was talking about last night. This is about understanding angles. So here we have our ball screen, right? Now, if Brunson just drives downhill, he has no chance to get a layup. Why? Wemby has inside leverage on Mitchell Robinson. So Mitchell Robinson would have no shot to be able to clear out Wemby to create room for the layup. But because he snakes the pick and roll, what does he do? Now this isn't his target driving lane. This is his target driving lane. Now Mitch has inside position and inside leverage. He clears Wemby out, creates the angle for the easy layup. That's just really smart work out of pick and roll from Brunson and from Mitchell Robinson. Here's that cleared side and one from Wemby. Definitely want to see more of this. So we go to Wemby. He's dribbling at Cat. Gives up the basketball, gets it back. Waves him through. Clears out Champagnie. Just goes quick towards the cleared side. Doesn't have to worry about a dig down when he goes that way. Where's the dig going to come from if there's nobody on that side of the floor? OG can help, but he's going to have to come over late. This I thought was a bad shot from Wemby on Cat. He tried this a couple times in the OKC series early, and it worked, where he just throws it up early and then he gets his own rebound and puts it back. But it really hadn't worked since then. And this is where I was just as critical about this with Jalen Duren. I want to see Wemby play off of 2 feet. Pound dribble, turn your back to him, and either make a passing read or shoot something a little bit more on balance in the lane. Here's the Brunson offensive rebound. I thought this was a big rebound. Swing. OG Anunoby gets open off of the Brunson ball screen. This kind of weird sequence happens here where so Brunson, the start of this clip is Brunson throwing the kick out pass. Champagnie is the primary. Champagnie then gets disconnected. He stands up out of his stance and he floats around in rotation. As the shot goes up, he and Castle both crash middle. You end up with this 2-on-1 rebounding advantage off the right side of the rim, where the Spurs have a 2-on-1 rebounding advantage or 3-on-2 rebounding advantage in this middle area. So it's this kind of weird out of balance area where if Champagnie would have just kind of stayed attached to Brunson, they would have had better balance. But not only is he not attached to Brunson for the rebound as he taps it out, but now no one's guarding Brunson as he breaks free there in the right corner for the biggest shot of the game. All right, 2 more clips. This is the play where Wemby dribbles the ball off of his foot. This is the identical move that he hit on Mitchell Robinson for a dunk earlier in the game. Just a simple right to left crossover. Also, I slowed this down a bunch, and obviously synergy, I don't get different angles. I think he dribbled it off Cat's foot. Watch. I'm going to just play it at 1/4 speed here. I think he dribbles it off Cat's foot when he goes to this right to left. See, crossover. Yeah, that's off of Cat's foot. That leads to the turnover. Now watch the exact same play from earlier in the game. Fast forward. Oh, I gotta show the Brunson bucket, of course. Nasty stuff from Brunson. This is a really good defense from Vassell. I thought this was a good no call too. Unbelievable shot from Jalen Brunson to ice the game. But here's from earlier in the game. Watch Wemby make the exact same move on the catch. See? It's the exact same move where he just kind of throws the ball out like he's going to go to the right and then crosses over left. But look at where Mitchell Robinson's feet are. He's squared up way more outside of Wemby's right shoulder, so his right foot isn't in the way. Not that Cat did it on purpose or anything, but that was the difference. Cat was more kind of lined up with Wemby's center of his chest, and his foot was right there, and he ended up forcing the turnover where Wemby ends up getting a dunk against Mitch. All right, guys, that's all I have from game one. As you guys can see, a lot of different things to get into. Those main takeaways, like I talked about, just the trusting the pick and roll to get Wemby deep post position and just being patient with your ball handlers to move the ball around to get him deep post touches. I do want to see some of the stuff we saw in the March 1st game involving the wide pin series that we didn't see at all from last night. Any of their ball screen actions where they go to the skip pass to Wemby and to the taking advantage of Wemby's roll gravity to get open threes, I'm a big fan of. And then defensively, I would continue to put Wemby on Cat. I just think he needs to adjust his technique to give a little bit more space. Make Cat make a three over a contest before he's just driving around you for layup after layup after layup. So those are the adjustments I expect from the Spurs as we head into game two. That's all we have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We will be back tomorrow night after the final buzzer of game two. I will see you guys then.